Okay, going into the Facebook group. Looks like we're on. Let me see. We go into Facebook and make sure that we can see ourselves. Yes, we're live.
Nice. That's not so
okay, it's happening. Okay, hello and welcome everyone. This is Bethany Webster, and I'm thrilled to welcome you here today to this Facebook Live. Once again, thanks for being in the pop-up group. This has been so much fun to gather together as women, healing and evolving and empowering ourselves right now, especially around Mother's Day, which can be such a challenging time for so many women. So thank you so much for showing up and being here today. I am so thrilled because today I get to introduce you to one of my favorite people, Sheila Pai, a longtime friend of mine. And I'm excited to talk today with her and with you guys about self-care. Today we're going to talk about, the main question being, how can we take good care of ourselves and really nurture ourselves around Mother's Day, which is such a challenging time for so many people, especially with all of these messages that we get from the media and our culture that induce a lot of guilt, a lot of guilt for the truth of our experiences with our mothers. In the Facebook Live we had a couple days ago, we talked about the lie of Mother's Day. And as we're uncovering the truth and really learning how to liberate ourselves from those lies, it's all about self-care. From everything from our thoughts, our beliefs that support us, as well as our practical everyday activities, so that we can really nourish and nurture ourselves around this time especially. So I'm going to introduce you to Sheila without any further ado and just read to you Sheila's gorgeous bio and tell you a little bit about what she does. And yeah, hold on one second. I'm just pulling it up here as we navigate this awesome new software that we have here. Okay, so Sheila Pai, Storyworker, heart nurturer, and cultivator of connection. Sheila is a relationship, business, and women's life coach who believes deeply in presence, not perfection. Through her retreats, coaching, and at-home courses, she provides the tools, insights, and guidance and support, and I love this part, to take surprisingly simple, practical, and doable steps. With compassionate non-judgment and intuitive care, Sheila skillfully cultivates courageous connection, peaceful ease, fulfilling freedom, and brave joy. This so describes you, Sheila. It's like amazing bio, and it's so true to who you are. I love it so much. She holds a sacred space of transformation to support shifts so that you can free yourself up to do the inner work that leads to outer change. Sheila's website is sheilapai.com. So thank you so much, Sheila, for being here.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. I'm so happy. I obviously love the work that you do. I'm so glad that I've been able to watch you take this to so many different people in so many ways. And it's so perfect that you're doing this work around Mother's Day. It's rare work to acknowledge this myth and bring consciousness to how we can care for ourselves on Mother's Day. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for showing up if you're watching now or if you're making the time and space to watch later. Definitely appreciate that effort. So glad to be here.
Thank you, Sheila. Yeah, Sheila was, when I first started out, Sheila invited me to be part of this beautiful summit called the Mindful Self-Care Retreat. And it was like a multi-day, it was so beautifully designed. And so I have such a respect for the work that you do, Sheila, with so much integrity and authenticity and just beauty that you bring to what you do. So I was really excited that you said yes to me inviting you to talk today to us about self-care, because as you know, the whole journey of healing the mother wound has to do with inner mothering. That's kind of how I talk about it. You know, how do we mother ourselves the way that we really needed to be mothered? And another reason I wanted to invite you, Sheila, is because you're a mom. I'm not a mom, and I work with a lot of moms. But I think it's really helpful for people to hear, like, how do we really take good care of ourselves when we're moms and dealing with our own mother wound? And it's Mother's Day. I mean, it's just a lot.
So much. It's so much. Yeah, it is so much.
Yeah. So I wanted to, is it okay if I ask you a little bit about your relationship with your mom and like how that's kind of been something you've been navigating too, like some of your challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I want to pause for a moment and say, I don't know if you can see on your screen that it has the Be Live comments thing that you might want to.
Oh, it does? I don't know how to get that off.
I mean, it has an X, but I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. It might not. I don't know if anybody else. I just wondered if it was there for you or not. But
yeah, you're right. It is there. Let's just leave it there.
Yeah, it might be so that people are warned that if they comment, it might share.
That's true. And you know what? There are comments. People are saying hello.
Oh, I can't see them.
Can you see them?
No, I can see that people are viewing. Hey.
Yeah, people are viewing. Hi, guys. It's so awesome that you're here. Wow. Oh my God, this is awesome. I'm trying this new thing called Be Live. And so this is a bit of an experiment. So thanks for hanging in there with us. And I think what I can do is hit the hide button and let's see what happens. Thanks for pausing with this for a second, guys. So it doesn't look like it changes the comments. So let's just keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see them, so I'll just trust that you'll tell me. I mean, it says chat with your guests, but then I can't maybe see.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I think there's a limitation to this.
I think you're the only one that can see it. So that's good.
So I'll just read the comments as we go.
Oh, here they are. Yeah, they're popping up.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Okay, great.
So this is so fun. I'm sorry. I've seen them pop on the video now. I'm so glad that people are here and commenting. It's so wonderful to actually feel each other in the room.
I know. This is what I love about this technology is we can really be connected in real time. It's just so cool.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Well, okay. So you asked a question. Sorry. The technology piece. My relationship with my mother. I'm so glad to be talking with you now. There's been so much transformation in the last, years certainly, but in the last 1 year in particular, or two. And I would say that I've learned my mother is, I call her a tank because she's so powerful. Yeah. In a feminist positive way of like, she's had to really be the only woman in a male dominated field and fight for herself. And she's done so well at that. And at the same time, me being more tender, she's kind of run right over me or my emotions and that kind of thing. So, I think it took me years to realize that she has trauma herself. But as a kid, I knew from 5 years old when, I'll just share a story. When I was 5, I'm the kind of kid that is just into wonder and, the wonder of living, like all that. So, very like dreamy child. And so I was so excited to fill up the bath and be like, oh my gosh, what is it like when it's all full? So it's just a kid thing. So I fill out the bath and I'm laying in there and I'm just like in awe of this experience that I'm having. And my mom comes in to say something and I see her face and then she sees me and I see her face change into this horror and she doesn't say anything. She leaves the room and shuts the door. And then she comes back in minutes later. But in the meantime, I'm like, I don't know what that was about. I'll just go into my ease here. Yeah, this is awesome. This is so wonderful. Yeah. So she comes back in and she has chili powder in her hand and she stuffs it in my mouth and starts shouting at me about how dare I waste so much water And don't I know, that that's so wasteful and like I should never do that again and all that kind of stuff, right? And so in the moment when I'm 5, like now I realize like stuffing chili pepper in the mouth is something that she's had done to her. That is what is kind of like common around her, like spanking in the United States or something like that. And so to her, I think it was like, and she was born in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, and grew up in India. So it's like water is a precious thing too. And so at the time, to me, it was really jarring to be like in this wonderful, wondrous experience and then have my mother do something that was so confusing to me. And so from a young age, my reaction to that moment was something is wrong with her. Do you know what I mean? Like something is wrong here. Yeah. It wasn't like I totally absolved myself of anything, but I think that I always knew from a young age that something was not quite right. And so even though I think growing up, I had a lot of struggle dealing with the comparisons that she would have, or like she would compare me to other people, or, her way of motivating me was like pointing out the things that I'm not doing. You know what I mean? How I could be doing better. I guess I was supposed to communicate that she believed in me or something. But, I think I always had in the back of my mind that idea that even though I'm taking these in and kind of believing them, they're not quite true, or something's off here. And so I remember 13 and thinking, I could have been so messed up. Like, I actually think I'm okay, but this is at 13. Right? I was like, I think I'm practicing my piano. And she's like yelling at me for like not practicing enough. And I'm thinking, I think I'm okay, but how does she know that I'm not going to end up totally messed up? Do you know what I mean? It was like one of these things where I think that has always been my relationship with my mother, where it's always been very hard for me because she so does not understand even anything about me, how I am, my way of being. My values are so different than hers. I've always been like the black sheep, that kind of thing. But at the same time, looking back, I think there has always been this thread of that's her thing.
Yeah.
And it's really been about me growing into that truth. Like I wasn't able to process that. It's still, as a child, you think everything's your fault, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. So I think that, that was the relationship with my mother. She's not safe and I can't trust her. And she will always be there for me to like, if something goes wrong, but who knows what will happen when I tell her. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right. It almost sounds like there was a price, like she was there for you, but
you got it right on the head.
To that love.
Yeah, I had to be who she wanted me to be in order to get the kind of thing that I needed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so the way you just captured it is like such a core theme for so many women, that feeling of like, I need to be who she wants me to be to get her love.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. I'm sure so many women can relate to that. And if any of you can, while you're watching, please do comment, let us know, like, can you relate to that feeling of, you have to be what your mother wants you to be in order to get her approval and her love. I hear that from people all the time. And it kind of seems like the bottom core of a lot of the dynamics that can vary quite a bit. Now, Sheila, I'd love to hear from you. Like, the work that you do in the world is so unique and so needed. How did you go from, it sounds like, having a mom who didn't have much nurturing, much warmth or softness or with you, that's kind of the heart of the work that you do, is you really help women learn to be very soft and gentle with themselves. And I'd love to hear how that transformation happened. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that it's so hard when you don't have models. That's why I'm so appreciative for a work like yours being out there to kind of affirm for women that they're not crazy. There's definitely something wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is not okay, because it's so normalized.
Oh, yeah.
You know, from our mothers and from everyone else. And I do think that I spent years really working within that system of thinking. Like, even when I thought I might be rebelling, I was always rebelling against her, right? As opposed to choosing my own path. And so I think it was really when I got to get away to college or afterwards where, you know, you get a chance to cultivate your own space. And
Right.
once you have your own choices, I mean, it was a process of thinking about, well, if she's not here, who is it that's telling me these things?
Mm.
You know, who is it that says these things that feel so bad? And why is it that, you know, a lot of curiosity, like that's just who I am. If you didn't notice, with the wonder goes the curiosity part.
Yeah.
But why is it that when I call her on the phone, I feel so bad afterwards? And why do sometimes I not feel as bad? And,
Right.
you know, really throughout these years, realizing that there's a dynamic about how I feel about myself and how I think she feels about me and the things that she has said to me. And that there is like a relationship there where, you know, if I am concerned that I'm not doing things that are in alignment with me, and I call, even today, like if I call her on the phone, she could ask an innocent, not even innocent, but just like a natural question, and I'll freak out, like, how dare she question me, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what it feels like inside. That's not necessarily how I respond. But I do think that starting to actually separate myself, you know, there's so much of that's like codependency.
Right.
And I think you talk about that, the narcissism and the codependency and some of those patterns that happen. And, you know, realizing that somebody doesn't have to be there for them to still have power over you.
Right. And I think that's one of the most powerful things about this work is that because our relationship with our mothers is so foundational, it's like the voice in our head often is our mother's voice.
Of course.
And so we have to learn to separate, you know, it's almost like her voice is laminated on top of our own voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to learn to like separate the two so that we can listen, instead of listening to our mother's voice all the time as the most dominant, we can like let that one go and make our voice the most dominant voice in our own, you know?
I think that's a major early step. And then the step after is once you can differentiate between these two things and they feel more distinct more often than not, or just more than they did. It really is not about perfection. It's just about being where you are, right? And reaching for the next thing. And I think one of the next things is that you really feel the choice. You feel the choice of your own choice about, am I going to listen to myself, or am I going to keep following this path? You know, am I going to give that power, and am I going to feed that power? And then I think, you know, what happened for me in real life, like in real time, was that was percolating for years. And then when I started my business, I did what I would have done as a child. Like I strove for greatness or whatever, you know, I worked really hard, and I had, you know, I started my business because I didn't want to work all the time, because I wanted more freedom and I wanted to be with my kids. And it was so stressful to be the way that I was doing my business, because I was a workaholic, you know, I'm a recovering workaholic, and I would just work just like she did. I looked just like her, you know, where she wasn't around as much because she was on call a lot, or, you know, she worked a lot. And, you know, as an immigrant who's sacrificing, I can see now where that thinking is, but I can also hear her now saying, I wish I would have chosen to stay home more. So when I felt that in my business, it was all like kind of building to this peak of, you know, feeling the sacrifice with my young children, and then feeling the struggle that, you know, creating a business is just plain hard work. You know, it's a lot of hard work. And is a spiritual practice to me, just like having a child is a spiritual practice. It really calls you into your being, and it shows you everything of who you are, all the great things and all the shadow sides. And one of them was just a deep, crippling shame that I would feel anytime I made a mistake. You know, like anytime, I mean, little mistakes, like sometimes you send an email out and the link doesn't work. Like that's not really a big deal, but to me it would be crushing. Right? It was like so bad for me. And I, you know, in that space of feeling that choice, really sat down to think about, like, why is this happening, and what is making me choose that over how I could feel, and what would it be like to live without this shame having control over me. You know, and it was really about guilt and shame and blame and judgment, these things, right? And I created this program that was called so funny. It was called Breaking the Cycle of Anger and Shame, right? And nobody wanted to take it, because even though everybody has that problem, like nobody wants to take a program that's called that. And I had this critical moment where I thought the old me would just pack up shop and quit, because this is the ultimate shame, right? Because it was the first program that I really felt like was so clearly my own and really deeply rooted in who I was in my own transformation. And instead, what I chose to do was run it anyway. And I had live calls, and I really got to connect with people and talk about this stuff. And it, you know, it was all for free, but it was so transformative for me. And I recorded all the calls, and it turned into this clarity that nurturing you is what that work was really about. It wasn't just about anger and shame and guilt and blame and judgment. It was really about the opposite of that. Like, what do you want to cultivate? And the clarity that nurturing you is what I did not know how to do. I did not know how to mother myself. You know, I did not know how to reach for joy or just simple care for myself. And it really was because I was coming from this angle of shame and guilt. You know, it was so much more for me than what I was seeing on the internet about, you know, or just hearing the mothers around me talking about, like, going and getting my nails done or getting my hair done or going to the spa. And I can't get to a hotel because I have these kids, and I can't leave the house and do all this stuff. And I was like, let me just write down what are all the myths that get in the way of self-care? Like, I don't have any time. I can't go anywhere. It means I'm neglecting the people that I care about. You know, it costs a lot of money. And, you know, that really wasn't the way I was thinking about it. To me, it became nurturing you, this concept of mindful self-care, which is not only like, how do you care for yourself? It's really about how do you care about yourself? Like, how do you care what you're thinking and feeling and needing? That's just so radical, to care about what you're feeling enough to even know, right? To know what you're needing. It's so radical.
It's so radical. We take it for granted, you know, like the whole self-care. I mean, people talk about self-care on the internet all the time, but like when you really get to the crux of it, it is really simple, but it's so profound to truly practice it.
Yeah. And you feel it.
And feel it, right? Like, not just like, let me get my nails done. Like,
exactly
what some people think is self-care. That's very superficial, but it's not really engaged. I mean, that can be part of a genuine, like, beautiful self-care practice, but that is not it in itself. Like, it's really about, I think, and I think this is what you're saying. It's really about the inner emotional connection within yourself and kind of becoming that primary source of support for yourself, so that you're not looking to that voice in your head or people outside of you to tell you that you're okay. You know, it's kind of like becoming your own deep source of truth and love.
Yeah, I think there's such a loss of self that happens as we're girls, you know, from a young age. And this idea that I want to appreciate, I would have, when I would coach, it would be in relationships, especially, like just these women in such pain. Like, I really need appreciation. I need to be acknowledged, like just some basic things that any human being needs to feel belonging, right? And connection. And yet, we weren't giving it to ourselves at all. When I would stop and say, like, what do you appreciate about yourself? And feel free to take this moment right now to just say to yourself, what do I appreciate about myself?
Yeah, everybody, let's do that right now. I would love to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just take a few minutes and just think about that. What do we appreciate about ourselves? I think that's a really powerful question to sit with today, because as you guys know, Mother's Day is coming up. It's only in a couple days. And no, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's only in like 5 days. So we have some time, but what I would love for us to do is really build up our reservoir of, self-care, so that by the time Sunday comes around, you are feeling, really empowered and really connected to yourself. And so let's do that. Let's just take a minute. I have a piece of paper right here. I'm just gonna write a few things down.
Nice.
Things you appreciate about yourself.
And I encourage everyone to lean into the discomfort of it.
Yeah.
It feels uncomfortable. Just love on yourself by sitting with that, if that's as far as you can go.
Okay.
What's one on your list?
I put my silliness. I can be really silly. And I want to be sillier more. I feel like I want to bring that out. I feel like I have a real capacity for humor and I crack myself up occasionally. And I really want to bring that out. The other thing I have is my integrity. I feel like that's so solid, and I love that about myself. And my go-getter part. That's not a striver, but that's like let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? What do you have?
I love that silly for you, because, sometimes the work, I'm sure you find, is heavy and very deep and serious. And I find myself to be very serious as well. But I love the thought of you being more silly. It would be I think it would be quite the beautiful model to have somebody who can navigate both of those things.
Totally. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I just want to pause for 1 second and let you know, Sheila, that we have a ton of comments coming in. And I just want to thank you guys so much for writing in. You are amazing. I'm scrolling through the comments. There's so many. I have some limitations with this system where you guys can't all see your comments. And apparently this is a known issue. So they're working with Facebook Live to show this. So yeah, so I just want to go up, because we just asked people to look at this question themselves. Oh, we got some answers for what people appreciate about them.
Good.
So I can't see your name, unfortunately. It doesn't show me your name, but I see that someone wrote my zest for life. That is awesome. I appreciate how smart my little one is, someone says. Oh, I love that. And she says, I love your silliness, Beth. Oh, thank you. Oh, and someone else says, that question instantly made me want to cry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally feel you. When we feel that, it's like things we didn't get, right? We feel that tender part of us feels like it's being seen, right? In a way that it's craved. So that shows you're moving in the right direction here.
Mm-hmm.
Someone else said optimism. Someone else said creativity. My sense of humor. Someone else had that too. and my courage in all caps.
Yes.
Hells to the yeah.
Um, can I pause on the crying for a moment?
Absolutely.
Because I do want to acknowledge that and I hope that, we can keep coming back to this question of the day, which is, how will you mother yourself this Mother's Day?
Yes.
How will you take care of yourself this Mother's Day? And, one of the ways I'm like such a brain nerd. I just love brain research.
It's fascinating, right?
It really actually, is a foundation in all my work, because that's very much what mindful self-care is about, is retraining the brain. Right? We have this programming for anger and shame and guilt and blame and all of these things. We have been given these messages, this voice. And the imagery around nurturing you is very much about cultivating your own garden. Like, are you watering your own garden? Are you like uprooting the things that have been planted there, maybe not even by you? And are you planting your own things, like consciously doing that? But one of the things that happens when, like, for instance, hearing this question and then the tears come, one of the ways the body shows us its wisdom is through healing. And the way that it does that is shaking and crying and sighing and yawning. These are all natural releases in the body. If you hear this question and you feel yourself crying, it really might be, I really encourage you to hold that as precious and go with it as much as you can, because it might be your body letting go, uprooting, right? Like in the moment, allowing that question in is actually part of, it's one of those small, surprisingly small ways, by allowing that question in, that you can start the big change, right? Just by allowing your body to heal, which happens to look like messy crying, maybe.
Yes, totally. Like allowing ourselves to be weepy and messy, I think, is one of the most profound ways we can love ourselves. It's just like, let that be. And I actually had that today. Like, I just got home from traveling for 2 weeks and I was so tired, and like, I just let myself be a blubbery mess for like a couple hours this morning. And I just needed it. And it just felt so good. It actually returned me to myself. I think there's this perception that if we let ourselves cry or feel angry or some of those, quote unquote, negative emotions, that we're going to be lost there and that it's going to disconnect us even more from ourselves. But actually, it reconnects us even deeper with ourselves, right? When we like embrace it and just be with it.
Yeah. It reminds me about something I was going to say earlier and forgot, was that, I think, like, even if you're messy crying, say, there's a way to do that mindfully and a way to do it mindlessly. And if you're mindfully doing it, it really is self-care. And, it's before, when I was talking about getting nails done or going to the hair salon, I think all of those are beautiful ways that you could be caring for yourself, but you need to be allowing that. So when I would be working with women, they would have these yoga practices, or they would, everybody wanted to do some kind of exercise. Like that was everybody's like go-to self-care is, I want to move, right? Because we're kind of stuck in these ways of being. If you're nursing, you're nursing. If you're at a job, you're at a job. Like everybody's got these ways that their bodies are, and they want to move. And there would be so much shame and guilt and judgment and blame around, I should really go to yoga 3 times a week, and I should really go once a week. Everybody had these numbers that were like these goal reach numbers. And the language around it was so set up for kind of degrading your efforts from the beginning, right? Because you already felt like you were in a deficit, as opposed to, setting a goal like, I'm going to roll out my yoga mat once a week. I'm just going to roll it out. And feel what that feels like. Because what I would say to women is, you could go to yoga every single day. You could take 2-hour classes. I don't care how much yoga you do. If you are not receiving it as self-care, it's not going to be self-care. Whatever you're
Amen.
doing, if you can do it mindfully from a place of caring about you, then it's self-care, right? But I really wanted to distinguish the checklist of things to do from actually caring about yourself.
Thank you so much. Thank you. You just hit on something I think that so many of us can relate to, which is that thing of, yeah, self-care just becomes one more thing that I have to do. Like at the retreat I was teaching this past week, a woman said, and so many others agreed, that mothering myself just feels like, it feels hard because it emphasizes like, I have to do it, you know, like no one else is doing it for me and I have to take care of myself. So it becomes this one more thing and something else to resist or flagellate yourself over because you're not doing it, right? And what you described is basically that we can slip into that whole like whipping ourselves about it rather than seeing it as, so how do we make that transition? Like, how do you suggest how do we approach our self-care activities from like one more thing on my list to, you know, I really want to do this for myself and I'm so excited to do it because I get to receive. Like I'm not just the giver of it and the doer of it, but I'm the receiver as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about going back to that question about my mother, where you know, she really does not have her own sense of self, even now. Like it really is, as a mother, all consuming to her, and it's not a healthy way. And so I don't really have that model. And you know, I think the switch to actually caring about yourself. I mean, I'm thinking about the women you said we're talking about how hard it is, right?
Yes.
I think it really is, for me, about feeling the pain.
Yes.
Of why don't I want to care for myself? Like, you know, really, because I mean, you didn't say that, and I don't think they were saying that, but my own experience and my work with women tells me that there's generally resistance there. We want to be cared for, but we want other people to do it. And when we realize that we're the ones that have to do it, it is so earth-shattering and terrifying because we don't know how to do it. And it feels bad and wrong. It feels wrong and selfish and all that kind of stuff, you know, and it really is about changing the narrative around, you know, that's why I call myself a story worker. I really work with stories. They're all these stories. They're so rich. Everything is there. Everything is there in the story, right? You can tell yourself one story, you can tell yourself another. And whether or not you believe it is simply a matter of time and energy, right? In a lot of cases. And so, you know, I think it really came down and comes down, if you're talking about how to shift, it's a question of how can you cultivate a sense of worthiness? How can you cultivate a sense, and this is what I say, this is what I said in the group, that you are precious. You are so precious. You, exactly you, like right now with all the messed up stuff, all of that, so precious. Every breath you take, everyone you talk to, you know, everything you give, everything you are is such a precious gift. And that worthiness is just a natural state of being. You are worthy.
Yeah.
It really is about coming to believe in the worthiness. So how can you cultivate a belief in worthiness? Like, how can you cultivate that feeling of worthiness within you? And that's what I think is really behind those responses that you got from those women, are the ones that I got, right? It's that I don't want to care for myself because I don't even think that I'm really worthy of doing that. So where do I begin? If I'm not even worthy of doing it, where do I even start, right? And that's why I think I do love brain research, is because even if that's not your current brain pathway, it's just a case of how do you create a new one?
Exactly. Like we have that neuroplasticity, right? So we And I think what you're describing, it's so fascinating. I like to talk about it like the inner mother and the inner child what I've seen women make the shift is that when a really powerful shift is when we get in touch with what happened to us, as women, when we take in the magnitude of what we went through and how we suffered as a little girl. And I'm going to have an exercise for us to work on tomorrow in the group. Like really taking the preciousness of the little girl that we were, sometimes that's a really good, like a easier road to go into, like to find a picture of yourself and be like, oh my God, look how sweet and adorable I was, and then to think about what you went through, like the things that happened to you, the neglect, the abuse, the hard times, the loneliness, the confusion, and begin to really get in touch with that magnitude. And often that can be a road into that little girl did not deserve that. That was not okay. It's almost like we have to feel that feeling of that's not okay, what I went through. I need to do something different. It's time for things to change. Kind of circling back to what you were saying, Sheila, earlier, which was so powerful about, having the awareness of how we're not, we're living with our mother's voice, not with our own in our head. And have that choice point of, okay, I'm going to do things differently. I can make another choice. The more awareness we have about how that's playing out, then we can halt it or interrupt it in the moment and do something different, whether it's telling ourselves, something different, like a belief, or if it's just, making a new decision to do something differently in the moment. It's these little steps, like you were saying, they're just all these tiny little steps that cumulatively over time, deliver us to a new place in our lives.
Those little steps matter, every little bit matters. I think sometimes we get thoughts of like, it has to like add up and be this momentum, but it's just cumulative. That's why I talk about presence, not perfection. Like when you're forming a new pathway, you're not going to form it every time. Your brain has a very deep groove that it's going to go down. But every single time that you create a new pathway, like you go down that, it's there. It's getting deeper, right? And that I do want to encourage women to, and this is why I say, like, I get so serious. I really value the shadow sides of existence, right? I really came to value my shame and my guilt and the blame and the judgment within me, because it really became for me when it would feel very painful and still, how can I feel that grief? There's grief. It's grief, there's the grief of the child who I was going through all of that. But what maybe I find for myself anyway, that hurts even more than that are the ways in which I continue to do that to myself now. Like when I say you have a choice, once you are distinct and you can see your mother's voice and your voice, every time you hurt yourself, it is so much easier to just say, like, how dare she have done this to me and made me this way, than it is to say, how could I have made that choice and hurt myself that way? Yeah. It's so painful. It's so grievous, right? Yeah. And it is so loving. It is so powerfully loving to do the work of sitting with that pain, not only of like, gosh, my mother stuffed chili pepper in my mouth when I was 5 years old. That is so messed up, but right. But more, how could I have thought that doing that thing was going to help me? Like, how could I not see it? How could I have made that mistake again? Didn't I already make that, like all the thoughts, like instead of letting the story go off and be the story, hit pause on the story and just sit with the grief and the pain that is.
Yeah.
That is often, like when we say like children need a consequence, so they're going to keep doing, like, I don't necessarily have a full belief in that, but I do think that you need to have some learning process that happens in order for change to come. You need to have awareness. And unless you feel the pain and the grief of it, and if you skip over that, then you're not really fully going to retrain your brain.
Yes.
You have to feel how painful it is when you act against yourself. You have to feel how painful it is when you neglect yourself. Not your mother or the boyfriend or whoever, you know what I mean? Like not even your kid that's so demanding. Like it really is most painful, and it is transformative in all those other relationships when you can sit with the choices that you have made for yourself. You know?
Right. Because when we're with the choice, we see the choices we're making, then we have the, like you said, the ability to make a new choice.
Yeah.
And to do it. Huh?
As hard as it is, you know, having boundaries is an art. It's not easy. I'm not saying that any of this work is necessarily easy, but yeah. I think that it's worthy work. And I do think that you matter. I think that you deeply matter enough to try again and again and again and again.
Exactly. You know, I think of so many of us as little girls felt like, you know, no one was there, no one cared enough, you know, to keep trying for us. And so we gave up, you know, we gave up on ourselves. And so there's so much value and beauty in showing up for ourselves again and again. One of the things I like to say to people is, you know, you're worth the time it takes to process your pain.
Yeah.
You know, like you're worth that. And I think the child in us is the one who says, I want someone else to do it.
Yes.
It's the little girl inside of us that says, I don't want to do it. I don't want to.
We feel helpless. We feel helpless and hopeless and powerless and confused, uncertain. There's all the things.
So many things.
You know, and I mean, I think that's part of independence and self-actualization is figuring out how do you do this for yourself. You know, there's so much freedom. There's so much freedom in caring for yourself. You know, and I will say, like, just to bring in my own mothering, like me as a mother.
Yes.
Because you were talking about taking the time to process your pain. You know, part of why I feel so radically different now than I did 2 years ago, or even a year ago, maybe even 6 months ago, maybe 8, something like that, is that, you know, I'm incredibly nostalgic and have a deep sense of like the loss of everything. You know, as much as I feel the preciousness of everything, I feel like the loss of everything. And so, you know, time with kids goes so fast, and it feels so fleeting. And I had such a strong narrative of how, you know, I was so messed up, and you know, I had this big vision when my kids were born that I was going to do things differently, and they were going to come out differently, and you know, it was just going to be this completely different experience, right? And it was so devastating to me to be in my body in this time, in this line of the generations, right? There's so many generations. It's not just my mother, it's my mother's 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 mother, right?
Oh, totally.
And so it really took me sitting with my own grief, like I said, that I am one human, and I am not in this lifetime going to really be able to reach the full scope of my vision for different change, right? For this different way to move these generations forward. I'm not going to be able to move them as far forward as I hoped when I had a newborn. That was so devastating to me, because the reality is that I have reprogramming to do. I have a program, right? And I cannot change what I have been given, and I can only do what I can do as a human. And so, you know, it really came for me to soften, so much softening, so much gentleness, you know, really so much release and letting go, and putting into perspective, because mothering in this day and age, just being a woman in this day and age, I would say that so much of what I'm saying about being a mother is not necessarily about you having your own biological children or anything like that. There's plenty of people to be nurtured and mothered in the world.
Yeah.
There's plenty of nurturing that goes on for all women. But I do think there's this way in which the modern standard of womanhood or motherhood is so damn high. It's
Oh, it's so high.
so high. And it's so complex. It's not even simple and high. It's just everything everywhere, right? Like
Yeah.
as much as our concept of the world has grown with the internet and globalization, we are at that level. Like you have to be socially active and you have to like be a perfect mother. You have to, provide in all the ways and all the moments and look great. It's like all the things, right?
Oh.
And just even sitting and realizing that just a generation ago, you were fine and awesome if your kid went to school every day, had clothes, had lunch, had a house, like just not even like had a great lunch, had a great house, had a great school, had a great experience at school. None of that mattered. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the standard of perfection has just grown, I think, as globalization and capitalism has just taken over. So it's all about how we look, the projection of our image. It's less about the inner world. And so all these dysfunctional systems are just becoming more and more dysfunctional, all these images of how we're supposed to be. And so hopefully we can use that contrast, and be like, okay, what do I need to focus on here? That's really important.
It's really helped me scale back.
Yeah,
awesome. It really helped me. And here I'll bring it back to the point, because this is, if you haven't noticed how I talk in circles, but that when you talked about it is self-care to take the time to heal and to process. It really took me a few years ago realizing I'm not going to be able to do this huge leap. But if I don't heal myself and my daughter watch me do that, then this is just going to keep going. It's more important for me to do the things that feel hard, set really stronger boundaries, to take more time away from my kids, and not for work, but for myself.
Yeah.
I have made a commitment that my job is to heal as a mother, and I'm willing. I mean, it hurts, and I definitely work with the story in my head about, shouldn't I be there for them all the time? And, shouldn't I play with them more? And shouldn't it be easier for me to play with them? And all the shoulds and should, right? But, it's been a commitment of mine lately to sit with my reprogramming, and having my daughter do that with me is so much more important than me being the perfect mother.
I love that. Thank you for
taking years. It's worth the years. It is worth these precious young years of their young lives to heal myself, because then when they're teenagers, at least I will be able to be there for them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. And I think what you're saying is so revolutionary and so important, because, you're basically saying that you reprioritized your life so that you could do the inner work that's necessary so that your kids can get what they need as much as they can from you as a mom. That's really what matters most. It's not that you pack their lunches and that that all these amazing things, like these perfection things, the outer things. You're saying I put the inner first, and that's going to mean I'm not going to be able to do some things. I'm going to have to say no to a lot of things. I'm not going to be there for them sometimes. I have to take care of myself, but then I can show up differently.
Yeah.
I mean, that's definitely what I've seen, in the women that I've worked with, is that when they really commit to doing the inner work of healing the mother wound, they automatically show up differently with their kids, even though they're not working on their parenting per se, they're just working on themselves, but the whole relationship shifts as they do that work. So
I have found that I am so much happier, and beyond me, my kids are so different.
Yeah.
They are so much more at ease. When I was so concerned about not doing enough and like me, in my story was, I'm just like my mom. I'm working all the time. I'm neglecting my kids. Like, I am so not just like my mom.
Right.
You know what I mean? I may work a lot more than I, want to in any given day, or I would love to not have a job, but, and, I would probably still do my business, but it's just like,
Yeah.
but I mean, I really think that they got to release what they were holding, because they used to be so kind of like, oh my gosh, it's not enough. It's not enough. Like, you're never around and I can't play with you and all that stuff. And as soon as I didn't care about it as much, they were like, hey, can I play with you? No. Okay. I'll go play with Malva. It's like, they were just chill. It was really, I think, so much of what I was communicating to them about who I think I should be and how there's a gap. And they're like, oh, there's a gap. I'm not getting enough. I'm not getting enough. And as soon as I was like, I'm enough, they were like, hey, you're right. You are. This feels great.
Wow.
It was really shocking to me to feel that shift,
It is shocking. That's incredible. That's incredible. Wow. I'm so glad you shared that. I think that's just a really powerful story about how, you let off the pressure off yourself, and your kids felt this enormous shift in how you showed up for them, and their own sense of like craving and needy, their desperation or whatever was just kind of dropped when you dropped that own pressure on yourself. So that's just speaks volumes. I mean, that's so powerful. And I'm just looking at the clock and I can't believe it, but we've almost been talking for an hour. And I know we wanted to take a couple of questions. So, and before we do, I just wanted to say, I think we talked about, one of our goals was to frame for you guys, how can you take care of yourself this Mother's Day? How can you mother yourself? How can you nourish yourself? And what we've talked about a lot today on this call has been a lot about, making space for your feelings. And I think if you can even just do that, that is a huge step.
huge.
Whether it's just like feeling your rage, feeling your sadness, feeling your grief, whatever comes up for you, if you can make time and space for you to feel that, then that is a huge way of loving yourself, to be sincerely present with yourself. And maybe that's a question to sit with. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say two kind of prompts for people to think about, to kind of jump off of, for how you are all going to take care of yourself this Mother's Day. One of my favorites from a woman that I worked with from the beginning was when I was doing the Nurturing You work with her. She was like, my mindful self-care ritual is going to be to go pee when I have to go pee. And I'm going to turn off the stove or end the call or do whatever I have to do instead of holding it. And it was so radical to me that, I've told everybody, and it really is radical to everyone. And I think there's just so many more women who are listening to their biological needs than there ever were because she said that. But that's one. It could really be that basic, right? And the other way it could be basic is to think about, what do you already do? Kind of pulling from how I was talking about it. What do you already do that you are now willing to do with care, with mindfulness, with a true sense of, I matter. I'm going to drink this one sip of water and feel the care, not like I'm going to shame myself into eating a salad, but when I eat the salad, I'm going to feel the love that was me making this choice. I'm going to make my bed the night before. I'm going to make this tea. Like, I ground my tea, like the cardamom for my tea. And I think about the qualities that I want to infuse in my day. Like, what are you already taking the time to do? Already using the energy to do? And how can you, allow this loving care to be part of that process, if that makes it easier to think of some things.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's a really nice step. It's like, you don't have to think of anything new that you're going to do for yourself. No. You just have to do what you normally do, but do it in a loving, sincere, present way for yourself.
because you know I like simple, practical, and doable. Like, I'm not trying to run up against those myths. Those myths are myths. And so there are definitely things that you can do. You can breathe all day long if you choose to breathe mindfully. What a loving act.
Yeah, really.
One mindful breath. Such a loving thing to do. And it just comes down to that. Are you willing to take one mindful breath or not? And if you are not willing to do it, are you willing to sit with that? The fact that you're not right now ready and willing to do that, you know, which may lead to the feelings that are behind the resistance, right? So just either way you go, it's not a setup like yes is the right answer, but it's a nice check-in for yourself. Am I willing to take one mindful breath right now? It can be that simple. Breathing is free and you're already doing it. You don't have to go anywhere. I mean, like, that's the kind of thing that I was thinking, like, how can I break down these myths? There's so much care that you can give to yourself that does not cost money and doesn't make you go anywhere and doesn't neglect anybody else and doesn't take any time. And, you know,
and especially as moms, this is super liberating for moms, right? Because it's not like, oh, I have to book a vacation or I have to give a massage every week, which I can't afford. And, you know, all that, those myths that keep us from doing it anyway. And that they're not, we don't have to do those things. There's so things we can do that really matter don't cost anything.
Yeah. And I mean, the ones that would be impactful for me as a mom would be, am I willing to leave the room when I'm losing my shit? Am I going to stay in the room and lose it? Or am I actually willing to say, I need to go take a breath right now and leave the room? Like, it's like, am I willing to do that? It's such a radical thing to do sometimes as a mother, to like choose myself in those moments over the breakdown that is happening in front of me. But I can't help that breakdown when I'm broken down. Like, it's just, I know that, you know, and so it's kind of, you know, there's so many ways to mother yourself, even as you're mothering in those insane moments. Right.
Totally. Thank you so much, Sheila, for sharing that. I'm just going to go.
Have any questions?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the comments and see what we have here, because we've got some comments coming in. One person said, I think I will nourish myself this Mother's Day by not distracting myself away from thoughts about my mother, but rather I will allow myself to have some feelings about our estrangement, etc. That's awesome.
Oh, I could just tear up at that.
Yeah.
That really moves me. That moves me so deeply that you would choose to take the courage to care like that. What a wonderful thing.
Truly. Oh, wow. Okay, let me read another one. This is so good to hear. I have a major voice that says it's lazy to take that time to really dialogue with myself, feel my feelings, just rest and be in relation with myself. It's the best job I can do, but the voice says lazy. Good to have this reminder. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not like, that's the opposite of lazy to me. Like taking the time to talk, you know, with your inner child, or just, you know, be with your beliefs, be with your thoughts, you know, mindfully connect to what you're feeling. Like, this is like the epitome of personal responsibility. And,
yes, exactly.
You know, I really would love to encourage you guys to see that this way, that like this work of taking care of yourself, it's the epitome of taking responsibility. It is not laziness. It is not frivolous. It is important. And the truth of it is we have to be willing to be rebels, you know, and badasses to take care of ourselves, because of all the messages that say, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to take care of this person. So being willing to be like, no, I'm going to be with me right now.
And even to tell that voice is saying, you're lazy, to say, you know, thank you for worrying about me.
I like that.
That's from a place of worry and fear, that voice, right? That's somebody, you can't rest right now because you're not okay. You know, I'm okay right now. Thank you. Thank you for your concern. I love that. I'm good.
Yeah, it's like that voice is just trying to keep us safe, right? It's just
yeah. And I guess I wanted to clarify that I don't think it's about making the voice go away. Like I said, it's not about making the shame go away. It's such a beautiful gift. Just to be able to listen. There's wisdom there. There's so much wisdom in that voice, and shame and guilt and blame is your power. It's all right there. right? In that same story that hurts you is some other story that empowers you. So it's worth the time.
It's so worth the time. And I hope you guys are really feeling that, you know. I like to say that, like, being with our grief, being with our breath, you know, this is like the best investment of your time, because there's such an amazing return on investment. You know, you get to feel more connected to yourself, more free, more empowered. So we're living these new values into being, right? And we can't get the validation that we look for from our mothers, or even our partners sometimes can't, you know, give us the validation. It's like we have to find that within ourselves and with each other, and really support each other in taking these bold steps.
And I forgot to say that after all that work that I did with my own mothering and my own self, my relationship with my mom is so different. I mean,
really?
I might still get triggered, but it's so much rarer. And, you know, she is able to show me compassion and empathy. Like the other day, I have 2 kids, but before I had the 2 kids, I lost a baby. And I remember calling her, and all she could say was, you know, there'll be another time. like one of those, I mean, I don't think that's exactly what she said, but it was kind of like, you know, move on. Like one of, you know, it was so painful to me. But yesterday, or not even yesterday, I guess this weekend, I was talking to her because my cousin died, and I've been so just rocked by that. And so has she. And, you know, she was talking to me about the whole process, and I was just going through all the grief, like the anger and the regret and the deep sadness and all the stuff. And she was really able to hold me. Like, she did not stop me or, you know, do one of those make it better motions. Like, it was so beautiful. What a gift it was to give me that. And, you know, I have been much more able to just say things like, first of all, text is very helpful, right? I found that, like, writing letters and texting, like, I've had to craft my relationship with her over time.
Yeah, sure.
And, you know, she's able to, I can show her compassion and say, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
You know, and she can say, because she was retiring, you know, it's like a whole different experience for her to be able to say to me, I'm really scared about retiring. And for me to just say, I hear that, you know, like, I don't know what life, whose relationship is this? Like, this is, I would have never thought, you know, even 5 years ago that we would be in this place.
Wow.
You know? So I encourage people to value yourself with no real, you know, objective other than you matter and you're worthy and you're precious, you know, so that's why you're doing it. But I hope you can hold on to the fact that if you let the pebbles fall in that lake, right, and do that work, those ripples are going to go out. You will find them.
Yeah,
it takes time, and it's not a linear process at all. You know?
Very true. Yeah, that's a really important point. You know, I wish there was, you know, the organic process is very circuitous and winding and undulating, but it's almost like it has its own wisdom, right? It has its own unfolding that we can't perceive, really. We just have to trust.
Yeah.
Like you were saying. I have a question here.
Yay.
Yay. Question. I notice I still keep trusting people despite what my intuition says. I tend to trust the people outside more, like when I did when I was little. I had to trust my mother. This happens with friends, relationships, and people I work with. It's definitely a pattern, and I'm noticing it, but I keep doing it and only find out I better trust my intuition. Otherwise, I'm hurt. So what can we do to heal this core thing?
What a beautiful question.
Yeah.
I have been thinking about this for a few years now, this concept of trust. Trust. What a beautiful thing. I don't know if anybody has read, if you're listening, if you want to Google Brene Brown and the anatomy of trust. Some beautiful work that she's done, but that's more recent. one of the things I was thinking here in that question is, are you sure you trust them?
Mm.
Are you sure you trust them? Because one of the things that I've come to find for myself in trust, and just noticing it. I'm still working on this theory, so I'm happy for the feedback. But is that we don't really trust other people more than we trust ourselves. And the reason why we might not trust other people is because we really don't trust ourselves with them. And so sometimes I wonder this for myself. Am I really trusting that person? Like I say, all right, I trust you, but is it a feeling of trust? Like, am I truly in a space of trust, or am I in apprehension? Am I doing that to people please because I'm supposed to trust them? But
Right.
really, because what I'm wondering is, are you really trusting them, or are you actually distrusting yourself?
Ooh, yeah, that's a really profound piece. Yeah, like putting someone else above yourself, which, very insightful question. As she said, this is what I had to do as a little girl, was to trust my mother. And I also see, another question I would ask this person is there some hope in there? Like an impossible dream. Like if I trust, will mommy show up? If I trust her this time, will mommy come through?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we can attract people in our lives that are very similar to our mothers and replay some of the similar stuff, right? Because we're trying to work it through on some level. So that's just a question to sit with too. Like, is your inner child looking for a mom to come through for you and replicating the wound that way over and over? And what's at risk for you to be with her and to be your main source of support? Like, what would you have to let go of in order to really trust yourself and have you be the most important one?
What a lovely question. What would you need to let go of to really trust yourself? What a gorgeous question. What would you need to let go of? It's so beautiful.
Yeah. There's usually something we're carrying, the little girl inside of us usually. Whenever we're doing something out and we're like, why do I keep doing this? And we can't really figure it out. It's usually the inner child, the little girl in us that's like, this is the only way, she'll sabotage our adult plans because she doesn't feel safe, or she's trying to get her needs met in some other way. So I think even,
go ahead.
Sheila, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do think it's a practice because, I don't know that we trust other people more than we trust ourselves. And if you're in that situation where you're thinking, should I trust this person or not, to turn it around and say, well, do I trust myself?
I like that. Yeah.
How can that inner child trust me? Am I being trustworthy? Am I being trustworthy by even, I'm saying pretending. I don't know that, she or anybody else is pretending, but like, am I being trustworthy by putting my trust in this person? Am I being trustworthy by negating the intuition that is so clearly choosing to come to me? It's so hard to hear your intuition sometimes. If you hear it, my goodness, it worked hard to get to you. Right? Are you trustworthy enough to receive that? And if every time you can hear that and then be trustworthy, that's the practice, because you will come to believe that little inner child will come to trust you.
Yes.
And that is the place of trust. That's where you're going to be able to trust anyone. I can't trust my partner if I don't trust myself. I don't trust myself with him. I feel so much more free in these last few years because I have a deep trust in myself. I know I will be okay because I will make it okay. Right? You know what I mean? Totally. Like, I know I'm going to take care of myself. So I feel much more free to have an argument or to have discord or, to push a boundary or to, make a misstep or, I feel more free to do that because I trust myself.
So true. And that trust is built over time, right? With all these little ways that we can show up for ourselves. We got a reply actually from that question. Yay. She said, I would need to let go of fear of judgment and reprisal if I trust myself before others. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe the next question would be, what can you do to support yourself, to move through that fear? What kind of support would you need to get, or, to make it safe enough for you to make a new choice, and really
It might
trust.
be.
Huh?
I love, might be social. Like, I'm a very social person.
Yeah.
If I text a friend and I say, all right, I'm going to go have that phone call now.
Yes.
Like, I will, because especially with boundary setting, I'll be like, all right, I'm going to go have that conversation. Okay, I'm going to set that boundary. And then they can be like, well, did you? How'd it go? And nope. I totally didn't do it. You might need some accountability. You might really need some actual tangible, loving support from other people as witness, to help with the shame part of it.
Oh, she says, thank you for taking my question. You are so welcome. You are so, so welcome. And yeah, the socialness is so important. And that's why, in my course on healing the mother wound, we have a really vibrant global group of women. Some of them have been in there for years, coming back, telling us what's going on, how things are changing. There's women in the group that are like, I'm going to go have this conversation with my mom, and we're like, okay, we're with you, cheering you on. You're like, come back and let us know how it went, So just knowing you're not alone and that there's other women that are on the same path. I mean, that's part of this whole pop-up group, is for, all of you guys to feel that you're not alone. You are so not alone. You're not crazy. You are healthy and you're worth healing. You're worth the time it takes to do this work. And that, because really, nothing else works. I've tried everything else.
Yep.
Sheila, you too?
Yep. Yep. There's lots of doing. You can do lots of things, but you're going to need to be differently at some point.
Right. So, yeah. And so, Sheila, it's been so nice for you to invite you as my sister, on the journey, to be here and to share your wisdom with the group here. This has been so much fun. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Oh, I know. Definitely. I'm grateful for the time. Thank you so much.
So yeah, thank you for so generously sharing your time with us and your wisdom with us. And I would love to, is there anything that you want to share with the community of the work that you do, or any place they can go to learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, I was just going to say quickly before that, if you are watching even later and you want to comment in the Facebook thread, I'm happy to continue this conversation there especially if you didn't get to kind of comment live. So I hope people continue the conversation. But as far as continuing the connection with me, I mean, my website is a great place to find a lot of resources. If you hit the join the community button, it's all the way down at the bottom, or I think it's at the top if you go to the menu. There's so many resources I put in there. It's like a huge library of resources where I have a lot of mindful communication videos. I have some bold boundaries, talking about boundary setting, a video series for that. A lot of mindful shift. The whole mindful shift series is there for free.
Cool.
There's a lot of downloads, so that if you want to, I think you and I know, but my work pairs so perfectly with your work.
Yeah, it really does.
If people want that additional resource, you can just join that community, and then you'll have all that resource to kind of pair with the mother wound work that you're doing. And I'm happy to just be in touch through my website. There's definitely, as you know, me mothering myself through my business right now, and pausing to see where's my next thing, what would be the most nurturing version of my business next. And so, I'm really not in your face with any programs or anything, but I will have my mindful communication and my Nurturing You course, like my book that I turned into a 13-week course or whatever. However, it's at home, so you can do it as fast or as slow as you want, just like Bethany. So those are coming out probably in the fall as well.
Oh, that's so exciting. Thank you so much. And your resources sound amazing. And I know some of the topics that you mentioned are topics that we've been talking about in the pop-up group, like boundaries and how do you communicate with your mother, and, just like tools that can be applied, to a lot of different areas. So Sheila, thanks so much for sharing that. And I will put that link underneath, the link to Sheila's website, which is sheilapai.com. I'll put that there so you guys can go check her out and access, her resources and everything. So I think that's it. I think we're done for the day. And once again, thank you guys so much for being in the pop-up group, for showing up, for sharing your stories, for showing up for each other, supporting one another. It is just amazing to be all with you guys in this pop-up group. I'm just loving it so much. I'm blown away. And Sheila, thanks for volunteering to kind of hang out with us there too, and check out the discussion that will continue, I'm sure, after our call today. Thanks so much, Sheila. You're awesome.
Oh, wonderful. I love you, Bethany. Thank you all so much for making the time and space to love on yourself this way. I hope you have a most beautiful Mother's Day of inner nurturing.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sheila. You're definitely, our conversation, I think, is part of that process for a lot of us of making that commitment to ourselves. So thank you so much. Nice. All right, everybody. I'll see you in the pop-up group.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.